Hi there, so in today's video we're going to look inside a lawnmower engine. I've had this one for about 10 years, just sitting up here in the undergrowth. It was out of my parents' old lawnmower, they didn't want it anymore, and I thought it would be fun to take it apart, but I haven't got around to it yet. So the first thing to do is to pull it out of the weeds and undergrowth. So here at the side we have the air filter. It's pretty awful, it's got insects living in it and it's gone a bit mouldy. And then behind that we've got the choke flap. So I'm going to take this off now. So there we can see the choke flap, which when I did test this engine and I wired it round to I put a cable on it going to a bike brake lever. It's not working at the moment because it's all moved. Anyway, that's the choke flap that changes the amount of air coming in, so it runs it richer when it's cold, so to start the engine. This is the carburettor, and now I'm going to take the starting recoil starter off the top. So I've removed the bolts from the recoil starter and also the petrol tank. So this was just a cover that I've taken off, and then that comes off. So you can see you pull that and the thing comes out that engages with the engine and it turns the engine over to start it. That's the petrol tank. So I've now taken off the heat guard for the exhaust, and this is basically the exhaust pipe. It's just a silencer really to quieten the engine down a bit, so you can see that bolted onto the side of the engine there. It's looking pretty manky inside. Taking this cowling off the top, and more of the that was where the starter engaged in. So then it's got this big sort of fan thing on top to keep the engine cool, and I've also taken the carburettor right off, which used to fit on there with this bit in between. And I can take the carburettor apart by undoing this bolt in the bottom of it. So that takes the bowl off the bottom of the carburettor, and the bowl would fill with petrol and move this float up and down, which operates this needle valve here. You can just see the end of it that is pulling up and down, which controls the flow of petrol into the engine. So these two flaps, that's the choke flap, which I was showing you earlier, and then the other flap on this side is what the throttle operates. So it all smells very petrol-y. And if we turn the engine over, we can now see the piston going up and down inside the cylinder, and we can see the piston rings there, which form a tight seal between the piston and the cylinder. It all looks pretty scored and horrible in there. Try and wipe it. Yeah, it's really bad. So if we undo these 4 bolts, we should be able to separate the piston off. They're going to be a bit tricky to get to. This is a bit tedious. It would be easy if I had a long Allen key that would go down the hole there. But I haven't. I'm going to turn them round a small amount at a time. It's an exciting bit seeing inside the cylinder. The cylinder looks a lot cleaner on this side where the carburettor fitted on. Oh, it's all coming apart. Look, this is fun. So the engine's come off basically. So that's the cylinder block with the intake from the carburettor and the exhaust. The exhaust obviously got a lot of crap up the ears, like bits of grass and things, which is why it's scored the cylinder lining. So that's the cylinder, and this is the piston. Look, going to a lovely little crankshaft. You can see how scored that piston is on that side compared to that side. That's the intake side where it's all nice and clean coming through the air filter. This is the exhaust, which obviously gets crap up it. And there you can see the piston rings. Now this is the coil, or it might be called a magneto, I'm not sure which basically generates the spark for the spark plug. So that's the spark plug lead. This lead here would go all the way to here to be grounded, so basically when you move the throttle lever back to a stop position, it would ground that contact and turn the engine off by shorting out the start plug. So I managed to get the coil off in the end by undoing the other bolt. So that's what generates the electricity for the spark plug, and the grounding wire turns the motor off. And the flywheel stroke fan came off pretty easily as well. That was just on like a tapered shaft there. So now the final interesting bit is to take those 4 bolts out, which should separate the sort of sump of the engine, or the body of the engine. It's not really a sump, 2-stroke. So that's the final part. Often when they're talking about taking things to pieces, they say crack the so-and-so, which basically means when you undo it, it goes with a crack. It's been done uptight. So this is the big moment where you should be able to separate the 2 bits of the engine. I've taken the bolts out and I'm going to give it a big whack. So I had to saw this off in the end to get it out, because this was also rusty, it wouldn't come apart. And that leaves us with the crankshaft and the cylinder and the piston rod and the piston, the crankshaft and the piston rod. It's an interesting part. And the cylinder itself with the spark plug, and the carburettor, which something's just dropped out. So I hope you found that interesting. Thanks for watching. So now I've cleaned it all up a bit, now I might be able to use it to tell my friends' kids how engines work.